Mrs. Ajua Friku to start us off with an opening prayer.
Shall we pray? Our Heavenly Father, we are so much grateful to you this morning. We thank you and we bless your name. We begin this program in your name because we acknowledge that you are the one in you we live and move and have our being. This morning we pray that come into our program, give us understanding, give us the spirit of understanding. Let's appreciate all that you do. Be in our meeting, grant us a successful program, and in the end we shall give you glory and honor in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Ajua. So, ladies and gentlemen, permit me to set the context. So, in October 2023, the Akosombo Dam spillage flood significantly impacted the southeastern part of Ghana. The spillage of the Akosombo and Pond dams by the Volta River Authority was a response to rising water levels, which were exacerbated by heavy rainfall throughout the year. This controlled spillage was necessary to address the risk of dam failure due to the water levels rising beyond the maximum operational capacity of the dam. The spillage led to the displacement of initially 8,000 people, rising further beyond towards about 31,000 by the 19th of October 2023. The town of Mepe was particularly hard hit, and affected areas included the districts of North Central and South Tongu in the Volta region, as well as the Iswejaman districts in the eastern region, with some communities completely disappearing due to the floods. The spillage led to immediate and direct losses for the affected communities, and this includes displacements of thousands of people, destruction of property and homes, and the loss of livelihoods. The flood waters inundated several communities, leading to substantial material and economic losses. In terms of environmental damage, the flood also impacted local ecosystems, wildlife, and natural resources. This aspect of loss and damage is critical and affects the long-term sustainability and environmental health of the region. The Akosombo Dam spillage serves as a stark example of how extreme weather events exacerbated by climate change can lead to significant loss and damage. I'd like to proceed by calling on Honorable Dr. Henry Kwabna Kokofu, the Special Envoy of the CVF Presidency and the Executive Director of the Environmental Protection Agency of the Republic of Ghana, to deliver the opening remarks.
Thank you, Madam Abena. Distinguished guests, esteemed colleagues, friends, ladies and gentlemen, good morning once again. I am proud to represent the government and people of Ghana, a country with a profound history and dynamic culture, at the pivotal gathering here. Our purpose today is simple, but very, very important. It is to delve into the pressing issue of climate-induced loss and damage, using the recent Akosombo Dam spillage in Ghana as a case study. Ghana, like many nations in the CVF V20, faces significant threats from climate change. And here, permit me to delve a little bit into the CVF. It is a coalition of 68 countries across the globe: Africa, Caribbean, Asia, Middle East, and the island states. It represents about 1.6 billion people, and as we speak, the chair resides in Ghana. So the President of the Republic, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, is the chair. The V20 equally is a group of finance ministers of these 68 countries, and the chair is the Finance Minister of Ghana, Honorable Ken Ofori-Atta. What we're talking about is a phenomenon that knows no borders and has far-reaching effects on life and livelihoods. The global impact of climate change is evident in the devastating floods in Pakistan, Australia, and Kenya. And recently, the global north have had their fair share, where Germany also got flooded. And indeed, New York, of all places, also got flooded. And the severe droughts in Ethiopia and Kenya are also effects of climate change. This year marks the hottest on record, and that has been very, very significant, pinpointing the science behind climate change as a reality. The economic toll on the V20 countries is staggering, with a collective loss of 20% of their wealth, amounting to 535 billion US dollars over 2 decades. And a research by the V20 also reveals that totally these 68 countries owes close to 520 billion US dollars. So you can equate the climate crisis to that of debt crisis. However, we are determined not to be overwhelmed by these challenges. Our focus is on forging a pathway to climate prosperity, capitalizing on our resilience to not just endure but prosper, and to contribute to addressing the root causes of climate change. Ghana's role as chair of the Climate Vulnerable Forum and the Vulnerable 20 finance ministers have committed to advocating for the needs of climate vulnerable countries and pushing for decisive climate action, hence the Loss and Damage Fund. And we are saying that we should not be left with an empty fund. There must be some money. And recently we've been told that some 500 million US dollars have been put in the fund, and we deem this to be wholly inadequate given the quantum of money that is required by these countries to solve their problems. In Ghana, our susceptibility to climate change was starkly illustrated by the Akosombo dam spillage in October 2023. This controlled spillage, a preventative measure against potential dam failure, led to significant displacement and economic hardship for around 35,000 people. This event, along with the dam collapse in Libya, which resulted in numerous deaths, destruction, and displacement, underscores the need for a delicate balance in utilizing natural resources for energy while protecting against the unpredictable forces of nature. And here too, climate-induced human mobility, internally displaced people, either planned or unplanned, has a tolling effect on these CVF countries. These events highlight our infrastructure's vulnerability to climate change, emphasizing the necessity for robust adaptive measures and substantial financial support to mitigate such climate-induced disasters. The establishment of the Loss and Damage Fund, with pledges totaling around $450 million, is a promising step, and we urge our partners to honor these commitments and then add on to. I've said earlier on that it is woefully inadequate. The Akosombo disaster not only had immediate human, economic, and environmental impacts, but also revealed critical weaknesses in risk management, early warning systems, and community preparedness. Today's event is focused on analyzing the damage. We aim to learn from this experience and spark discussions on innovative financing, policy development, and collaborative efforts crucial for addressing climate changes. Our goal is to foster dialogue on creating effective financial strategies for climate adversity and to establish networks for future collaboration in climate resilience, disaster risk financing, and data analysis. To this end, the President of the Republic put up a interministerial committee to oversee this spillage in Akosombo. It is worth noting that upon the marching orders of the Minister for Environment, Science, Technology, and Innovation, the Environmental Protection Agency have put up a comprehensive plan to look at the environmental impact assessment of this unfortunate situation. Part of this program will mean how to mitigate, how to adapt to, how to measure the cost so incurred, and then also learn from that for future prevention measures. Through this forum, we contribute to the global conversation on climate resilience, founding for loss and damage, and the shared goal of sustainable development in a changing climate. Let's collaborate to ensure the lessons from Akosombo inform our efforts to build a more resilient and sustainable future. I wish you a very, very fruitful discussion and encounter. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Honorable Dr. Kokufu. And I'd like to acknowledge and welcome the Minister for Transport, Honorable Kweku Esiama. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. So next, we'll be dissecting the Akosombo event, and we'll be calling on Dr. Daniel Benefo to take us through something of a gap analysis of what happened.
Morning. Thank you very much, Abuna. Wanted to start with the context of our study that we are currently doing. We wanted to answer the question whether or not the case of the Akosombo issue is a classic example of loss and damage. And we had to look at it in about 4 or 5 ways. The first one is the ecosystem of the subject. That is, we are dealing with the dam, and the management of the dam, the people upstream and downstream, and we are dealing with the ecosystem around the dam, and also how these big various components of the ecosystem are being managed. That's the first thing that we have looked at. And then if we look at it very carefully, we then delve a lot into the dam. And I think it's worth to understand what the structure of the dam is. The average operational levels of the dam is between 240 feet to 278 feet. And this event that occurred had reoccurred about 11 times. That's what we found. The last time was in 2010, where the dam levels reached around 276 feet, and they had to spill. And then the other issue is also the practice of the annual spilling of the dam occurs between, as part of the management of the dam, occurs between September and November. So this event of spilling is not ideally new because it's part and parcel of the management of the dam. And then the other issue is also very interesting, also the fact that the levels of the dam had in the past, we noted had reduced to as low as 240 feet in the past, to the extent that we had to use all several means to get the dam levels up. Now, what we found was the fact that in recent times, the levels of the dam is going up. And we found 4 reasons. One is the fact that the levels of usage of the water in the dam had gone down because of the investment that are being made on the thermal side. So as you invest in the thermal power production, the level of usage of the water in the dam is not as high as it used to be in the past. Which means that the drawdown or the drought from the dam to to the various termines are not as high as it used to be in the past. That's one factor. The other factor that we found is that the flow rate of the dam in recent times had not been low. In the past, it was quite low. Now it's not now it's high. Then the third point that we found was the fact that the levels of evapotranspiration is not as high as in the past because of what many believe that it is due to the low levels of temperatures in the area. So we are dealing with a case where in the past, the levels of the dam had not been high. And all of a sudden, the levels of the dam is high because of the low usage of the water, low levels of evapotranspiration due to what others perceived as the low temperatures, and also, very interestingly, the fact that there is high flow rates of the dam. Now, that is also what we found. Then, what we also found is also the fact that the dam itself, the VRA, had a management system in place, and what they call the EPP, the Emergency Preparedness Plan, which is what is used to manage the emergency cases when it arises. So the dam, in our view, was set up in a way that it will be managed in a way that those downstream, when there's a case of emergency, the EPP that VRA has will be activated. Now, here's the question. What happened in September, October, in our view, and based on several accounts and several studies, we found that two reasons. One is the fact that the total amount of water volumes that came through the intake, in our view, was not normal. And not normal in the sense that it was not the usual amount of water that they get. Next question was the fact that, was it due to high rainfall or the release of water from Bagri Dam? Evidence suggests that the Bagri Dam release was not a major contribution. What we found was the fact that this could be a clear case of episodic meteorological related events. And that falls square within the early warning system infrastructure that is in place within the dam. And therefore, GMET is here to tell us whether or not VRA knew the amount of water that was coming and whether or not they had a system to manage it. That, I think, is a clear case of a meteorological event. Now, the question still remains, is this still a loss and damage case study? And what are the elements of a loss and damage case example? One, is it an event that could have been predicted? Does the VRA's management system in place able to manage waters that are beyond what the EPP can manage? To what extent did the VRA's EPP manage the case where the water was beyond what they could manage? And this, in our view, are the very important factors that underpin what we observed. And to conclude, we are still going to evaluate the impact of what happened, but there are still questions as to what happens in the future. And here are the 4 questions that we are trying to answer. Should the climate scenario that has been predicted in Ghana, the worst case scenario, occurs in future, would the dam still continue to perform at the optimal level? Assuming that the predicted rainfall patterns that have been done by the climate scenarios happens to be the case, what will be the fate of the dam? Secondly, what will be the fate of the EPP that VRA right now implements should the climate scenarios begin to play out? And to what extent can that manage the impact on the communities downstream and also communities upstream? Lastly, what will be the impact on the ecology? So these are the questions that we are trying to answer. That should this happen in future, what reforms are needed to build on the resilience of the people and also the resilience of the dam? Last question. Is there an insurance covering the dam? The dam is an old dam. And how much are you paying? And to what extent how much premium is VRA paying? And again, going forward, to what extent can we use the tools that we have to build the resilience of the dam, as well as the people? So, colleagues, here are the things that we are trying to look into, and we believe that when you put all the things together and you have the big picture, in our view, we need to correct the narrative that what occurred was entirely the case of a failure of a management system within VRA, and look at the big picture and see what we expect in the next 20, 30 years. The dam is still going to be part and parcel of the energy mix of Ghana. And if truly what occurred is beyond the EPP that VRA has, then this is a cause for worry for us to rethink what we have in place as an EPP to manage the dam and the impact of the people when it occurs. That is what we found, Abna. And in our view, we have enough to chew on in terms of four things: the metro part, the impact of the people, the relief and emergency infrastructure, which is built on the early warning system, and also the impact on health and education, as well as the economic loss. So this is how we are approaching it, and we hope that by the first quarter of next year, we will churn out the report for people to see the big picture of what happened at Akosombo. In our view, this may not necessarily be the attribute of loss and damage in this case, because this, in our view, could be a one-off case scenario that we have found. However, there are also evidence that this could also be things that had happened beyond what VRA had put in place as part of the EPP. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Benefo. Very, very instructive. I can't wait to see the final report. So Dr. Benefo has been speaking to us about the ongoing gap analysis and reviewing the connection between the events that took place in Akosombo. This is whether or not it's a climate event or whether it's a mechanical failure. So next we have to come on stage to speak to us experts from the Ghana Meteorological Agency, local government, and the Hydrological Service Authority. We reached out to NADMO and VRA to join this discussion as well. Unfortunately, they couldn't make it. NADMO is not yet at COP, and VRA, for very good reasons, cannot join us this morning. So I would like to call on Mr. Eric Isuman, Director General of the Ghana Meteorological Agency, to share his views, focusing on how climate modeling and forecasting can be improved to better predict extreme weather events that impact structures like the Akosombo Dam, the kind of steps that need to be taken to enhance collaboration between GMET and other agencies for more effective early warning systems in such scenarios, and possibly insights into how climate change trends are specifically impacting Ghana's weather patterns and what this means for future infrastructure planning. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, and good morning to you all. Very excited to be here and to be part of this topic. And listening to the gap analysis, I've seen how most of the things that has happened and needs to be done appear to be centered on Meteo and the work that we do. And sometimes, back at home, we are talking about providing weather and climate service to support socio-economic development of Ghana. Sometimes you find it difficult to get people to appreciate it because we are always at the back stage, not too visible. And so it makes it difficult to sell your story. But the analysis that has been done here actually give us a very good opportunity to make the case that if an institution like Ghana Meteorological Agency is capacitated to deliver reliable weather and climate service, reliable in the sense that the message is accurate and is timely, it goes a long way to support our economic development as a country. I'm happy he spoke about Everpro transplantation. He spoke about stream flow and then rainfall. All these things squarely light with Ghana Meteorological Agency. We have a very good working relationship with the VRA. In fact, we have memorandum of understanding with VRA, and they even pay us for delivering specific services to them. And so we give them our seasonal forecasts, which give the outlook of how the season is going to be, where the rainfall is going to start, when the cessations are going to take place, whether late or early cessations, that to be expected. We give information about the dry spells that are expected, whether long dry spells or short dry spells, and then cumulative rainfall, and whether the season is going to be normal or above normal rainfall or below normal rainfall. And what do we mean by this? We do analysis for 30 years and come out with the mean rainfall for the 30 years and beyond, and compare that one with what is expected in the coming season. And if what is expected in the coming season is above the long-term mean, then we are saying we are expecting above normal rainfall. If we are expecting rainfall equivalent to the long-term mean, then we are talking about normal rainfall. And then if it's below the long-term mean, which is 30 years and above mean, then we are saying we are expecting below normal rainfall. And this information is made available to VRA. Again, we give them 10 days rainfall bulletin. This is validated by our weekly forecast, our 3-day forecast, and our daily forecast that comes 6 hourly. And so these informations are available to VRA. Analyzing the evaporation, transpiration, I'm B, so forgive me about my R and L. I struggle pronouncing those words. It helps them to know the amount of water in the dam and how it's evaporating into the atmosphere, to know how to manage the dam. And then the stream flow. Hydro, if they were to be here, will speak more about that. But Ghana Meteorological Agency is working with Ghana Hydrological Authority and UK CEH on Hydro SOS. It's a program that World Meteorological Agency is initiative from them, expecting the Met and the hydro institutions to implement. In fact, Ghana is the first country in the sub-region to start implementing, attempting to implement this Hydro SOS initiative. What it is going to do is going to help us be able to forecast the stream flow for 2-3 months ahead. And so if you're able to implement this system in Ghana, we'll be able to give early warning 3 months ahead to the VRAs and the water management bodies how the stream flow levels are going to be through this modeling process. We just had an inception workshop, and funding is being looked for to implement this project in collaboration with Hydro Authority. There's another project that has to do with water basin project. Yesterday, I was talking to somebody that we need to work towards breaking the glasses and then collaborate so that we don't operate in silos. The VBA project, and if Hydro is here, they will also elaborate more on that. Look at the water basin. And the water basin covers 6 countries. The chunk of it is in Ghana. So we have Burkina, we have Togo, we have Cote d'Ivoire, we have Benin, we have Mali, and Niger. And yesterday we showed a map when we were doing our presentation here, the entire basin. And so rivers, stream flow from all these countries with their tributaries converge and come to the Volta Dam. And so the levels of the waters in the Volta Dam cannot be attributed to things that are happening only in Ghana. And so looking at it globally, we need to be mindful of what is happening in these 6 other countries. And sometimes we talk about Bagre Dam spillage. But if you're looking at the 6 countries, you go beyond Bagre Dam. This year, coming to our forecast, March, April, May forecast, we call it MAM, MEM. And then April, May, June, forecasted below normal rainfall. Below normal rainfall. That's, as I said, compare the long-term mean against the expected rainfall. However, May, June, July, MJJ, and then June, July, September, forecasted above normal rainfall in Ghana, especially the northeast side of the country. The northeast side of the country have the white Volta coming from that side. And so if the forecast indicates above normal rainfall, it means it's gathering all the rains from that side into the Volta basin. And if Ghana is predicting from May, June, July, June, July, August, above normal rainfall in the northern part of the country, that's for Ghana. You will be right to expect that beyond Ghana, which is Burkina, Togo, the northern part of Togo, will be having similar above normal rainfall, which all flow into Volta Basin. In fact, we had a very significant rainfall in August, I think 2nd August, and one of the dates I can't recollect, which was extremely high in terms of volumes. So our analysis is that what happened has to do with cumulative rainfall, not one-off rainfall, cumulative rainfall, and then higher flows in Ghana and beyond Ghana that came into the Volta Basin. And that caused the dam level to rise to the level that has to call for this spillage. This analysis could be done better, with better resolution, when you have a lot more stations scattered across the country. In fact, the equipment that we use to gather the data, there are 3 major types: synoptic automatic weather stations or weather stations, agromet stations, and rainfall stations. The synoptic stations that gathered all the parameters for the climate and weather analysis, a bit expensive, have neat 20-kilometer radius, you need one there. Every 20-kilometer radius, you need one of them. And look at Ghana size. We are talking about 20-kilometer radius. We are talking about hundreds of those equipments as we speak. We have about 26 of that. Then the agromets, you need about 10-kilometer radius, you need one. That also, all of them gather rainfall data, but the synoptic type have a 10-meter pool that is good for, among other things, aviation. But then the agromets will deal with agric rainfall type, a bit lower in terms of costs, but doesn't serve the aviation that much. And then the rainfall stations. In fact, for a rainfall station, every 3 to 5 kilometers, you need a station there. A typical example is that you may be, our office is in Mimpasem in Legon. It can rain in Legon campus, and it has not rained in the Mimpasem where we are. I believe all of us has witnessed this. You may leave your house, it hasn't rained, you get to your office, it has rained. It has rained in your office, you get to the house, it hasn't rained. Sometimes we will say that it's going to rain in Accra and its environment. It doesn't rain in Osu, it rains in Medina. Osu person says, Matthew said it will rain, it didn't rain. But the one in Medina saw that it has rained. You need these stations. Every 3 to 5 kilometer radius, rainfall station. 1, to gather the data. 2, to validate the forecast that we have given. 1, critical equipment, radar. By the click of a button, radar will give a bare view of the atmosphere. There are some systems that are localized, that are developed. It will be seen by the radar, analyzed by the forecaster, and then be able to predict and give early warning. Normally, we rely on satellites. Satellite may be moving a system, but satellite may not be able to gather the what do you call it, the localized system that are developed. That's where we need radar. Radar can help you to tell the amount of rain that you are expecting when you are analyzing it. We don't have this. So I believe this institution should be capacitated to be able to deliver reliable climate and weather services for socioeconomic development of Ghana, so that we can avoid what happened. You have very good lead time for early warning, for necessary actions to be taken to mitigate the effects of climate change. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Suman. And as you all know, several communities were impacted by the flooding. And so we'll be moving on to the Ministry of Local Government, Mr. Eric Kofi Apono, Deputy Director from the Ministry of Local Government, to speak to us.
All right, thank you very much for the opportunity. I was expecting maybe a panel discussion, but of course, as it comes to me, I need to accept it. And I'll highlight on few issues on I think I was given some 3 critical areas. One being the role of the ministry. So let me just read it to you, and then I'll talk about those few issues. Right, so I'll talk about the role of the Ministry of Local Government in supporting local governance structures to manage and mitigate the impact of such disasters. We have how local government be better equipped and prepared for climate-induced challenges. And I think that's a very critical point. And then I'll also highlight on the issue of what initiatives are being planned to support the displaced communities and ensure their sustainable resettlement. Of course, the Ministry of Local Government exists to promote local governance and decentralization. And when we talk about local governance and decentralization, we are talking about transfer of power, functions, and resources to the local level for the implementation of development agenda. And of course, as part of decentralization and local governance, we promote political decentralization, administrative decentralization, legal decentralization, of course, decentralized planning. And when it comes to decentralized planning, you're talking about medium-term development plan, a spatial plan that are done by the assembly. The ministry also promotes popular participation. When it comes to popular participation, it's talking about how to engage the local communities in terms of planning, in terms of project implementation, of course, project preparation, all for within the ambit of the assembly. And let me indicate to you, maybe something that we have introduced into Ghana as part of the constitutional mandate of the country is that all development, maybe this could be a hidden issue, all development are supposed to be controlled by the Metropolitan, Municipal, and District Assembly. And so if you want to do anything at the Metropolitan, Municipal, and District Assembly, the onus lie on the assemblies. And they are supposed to coordinate and permit any development at assembly. And of course, issues of disaster management, disaster risk reduction also are part of development of the assembly. Issues of water, issues of energy, issues of every development, being housing, being infrastructure, roads, everything you want to do at the local level, it is the MMDAs that's supposed to coordinate it. And as a ministry, is to ensure that this is well coordinated. As a ministry, is to ensure that resources are mobilized and given to the Metropolitan, Municipal, and District Assemblies to do the development they have to promote. As a ministry, is also to build capacity, introduce certain capacity building needs, pose resources, human resources to the assemblies, and capacitate them and ensure that they are fully capacitated to do what they have to do in terms of decentralization. And so sometimes you find that there are various departments being even disaster management department is also with assembly. Various departments who have officers, human resources, that are within the assembly's control to come together and have coordinated plan as a medium-term development plan and special plan to promote the development. So that critical role of the ministry must be supported. And that comes to the second issue. How will the ministry be equipped and capacitated to promote the development at assembly? And one key thing that we want to do more intensively is to promote spatial planning. And spatial planning means that all the development areas of the assemblies would have to be planned. And of course, the ministry would also have to be equipped to be given the necessary resources. And that is where there's a need for collaboration. That is where there's a need to mobilize the resources that are available, to join with the private sector to be able to mobilize resources enough to support the assembly. And why would we have a created good decentralized system without resources? So we need to collaborate with various agencies to be able to mobilize resources for the assemblies to promote the development they need to promote. Of course, the third issue is what are the critical issues we need to deal with now. And of course, once this disaster has struck, we need to look at the various possible and disaster management system. We need to get enough data for planning to inform decision. We need to also give them the necessary resources to provide housing, to provide various level of infrastructure. We need to create a space for spatial planning, and those are various initiatives that we need to do. The ministry is already implementing a lot of programs and projects, and some of these resources are going to be used to support these local communities. And of course, one area that we need to also be looking at, because the flooding happened across jurisdiction, and so we need to promote a joint development plan, a joint development, so that you don't have only where one situation happened to do a plan. We need to do a joint development within the whole lower Volta Basin. The lower Volta Basin consists of about 10 municipalities and assemblies, about 10 of them, including the Southton, the Northton, the Adan East, Adan West, Kita, Angloga, and so many of them are within the lower Volta Basin. And if you want to do that development, it must be well coordinated, it must be joint. And of course, the law allows that assemblies can go into joint development planning. And so I would want to encourage that when we have a platform like this, let's see possibilities of supporting the MMDAs. It is not only the Ministry of Local Government alone that must support the development of the assemblies. It is for every sector to promote, to send resources for them to do the development that they need. And that is what we need to be rethinking about. So I want to thank you very much for the opportunity again. Of course, we did not have enough time. Otherwise, I would have highlighted some of the projects that we are currently implementing or are in the pipeline to promote the related development. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Eric. Next, before we move to discuss the financial mechanisms required for building resilience, would be to speak to the expert from the Hydrological Service Authority, Mr. Sylvester Darkon.
Good morning, and thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to the issues that are related to the Akosombo spillage that we witnessed in recent times. Basically, I'm looking at how we could assess the hydrological regime within the Volta Basin, within which the Akosombo is also situated downstream. Basically, the Volta Basin is made up of 6 major countries, including Ghana, Burkina Faso, Togo, Benin, Cote d'Ivoire, Mali. And so these countries contribute flows in terms of the Volta Basin into the Akosombo. So when we want to do any kind of assessment regarding the flooding within the Akosombo downstream, it is important that we take these transboundary dimensions into consideration. And therefore, I'll look at the structural measures and the non-structural measures that are being taken to address this problem in future. So structurally, I think we are aware of the proposed Palugu Dam, which is coming on stream. And so the assessment has been done to the extent that once this structure is put in place, it's going to address a large volume of the inflows from the spillage of the Bagri Dam. And therefore, we will reduce the inflow into the Akosombo, and subsequently the downstream will have a very effective flood management jurisdiction. And so in terms of the early warning system, non-structurally, there's the need for us to also increase the early warning systems so that we're able to provide enough alert information upstream so that we know that, okay, this flood wave is coming downstream into the Akosombo. How do we manage it? How do we move people out of the critical areas downstream, should in case there's a spillage? And so that will also have to be done. And currently, we are having an early warning system that has been developed within the Volta Basin countries, which is operational online. And this information is provided on annual basis, on a daily basis, to the various stakeholders, including the VRA, the Bui Power Authority, and all the other stakeholders. So this is one of the key initiatives that is being done to address the issue of the Akosombo dam spillage. And downstream, principally, we are also looking at how to engineer the land use and spatial planning efforts of the assemblies. And so this is something that will have to be taken into consideration by all the assemblies within the downstream aspect of the dam. And because once the issues are addressed upstream and we don't address the issues downstream, we will not get to anywhere. So in brief, this is what I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Darkon. We're kind of running out of time, so we're having to speed through. But we're at the section we're going to discuss the financial mechanisms for resilience. And I would like to invite Ms. Josephine Gaba, Senior Policy Advisor of the Climate Policy Division in the Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development of Germany, to speak to us about the Global Shield.
Thank you, Avina. Thank you for having me. Very excited to be here and tell you about the Global Shield. And I believe many of you maybe already know it because Ghana has actually just finished the first part of the in-country process of the Global Shield, which was a big success. And we are really excited about the results and the request about support. But let me tell you first what the Global Shield is and why the German government believes in it and believes to support it. So in the Ministry for Development Cooperation and International Cooperation and Development, we've of course been following very closely the negative impacts that climate change has on our partner countries, and a special concern for us was always the increasing climate risks and how the negative effects of these climate risks impact especially vulnerable communities and vulnerable countries, and what can be done in that regard. And so the thing that we think works very well in this context and is an important mechanism in this context to address this challenge, also address the losses and damages that are caused by these climate risks, is prearranged finance or climate and disaster risk finance, because this is allows us to arrange the support before and the systems before to make sure that when that disaster happens, the mechanisms are set up and money can be paid out and help can come right away, instead of, as it often is the case with humanitarian work, only arriving much later. And so Germany has invested in this space for several years already. I think in the meantime we've invested around 1 billion euro into this space to support this kind of solutions, because we believe in it. And last year, then that was a really exciting step for us. We partnered up with the Vulnerable 20 group, led by Ghana, and we launched the Global Shield together, the Global Shield Against Climate Risks. And we believe that the Global Shield Against Climate Risks is really a key part of the loss and damage financing architecture. And I'm sure you've seen it, that it has also been acknowledged as a funding arrangement for loss and damage, which is a great success from our point of view. And so the Global Shield basically is supposed to help partner countries that become Global Shield countries to access financing, to roll out finance solutions to protect their vulnerable communities. And so let me check my notes and the questions. What we do, and this is something that you've already experienced, or some of you have experienced in Ghana, is we do an inclusive country process where the country is in the driver's seat. This is also different to before, because very often the work that we fund in BMZ previously is very much donor driven. So we say, this is my priority, and then this is what we're going to do. And we want to change this approach, because people in the countries know what is needed and know what solutions can work best. So it's not up to the donors to tell, but up to the countries to tell. And so we have this inclusive in-country process that you have already completed, where we bring together all the important stakeholders from government and also from non-government, from the implementation side. So all the different agencies that are active in the country. We've been hearing from many of the representatives on this panel before, to bring in their experience and to make sure that they can bring in what they know and what they've seen in their work, to together then analyze what climate risks are relevant for us, what is threatening us the most, and what is affecting our vulnerable populations most, and what kind of solutions can help us, and what do we need. And then with the Global Shield, we are matching this and making sure that these solutions can then be developed. And so in the case of the Akosombo Dam disaster that you just went through, I think that's important to understand. The Global Shield cannot help after the disaster, but it can help to prevent the great damage that such a disaster can cause before. So basically, by setting up structures before the disaster, you can prevent it to become so bad, right? So you could have, for example, an insurance for the dam, that when the water level is too high, you then you have a payout, and you can move the population before the water is flooding the area, so you can already protect the population. You can have inclusive insurance for micro level, so that each household gets a payout. I don't know, if they lose cattle, they can rebuy the cattle, or they can reinforce their house. This is the kind of solutions that we want to help deliver on the ground, and this is how in this kind of a disaster, the Global Shield can help by pre-arranging the payout mechanism. And it's a young initiative. We only started a year ago, but we were able to mobilize already 300 million euros so far. We don't know yet how much funding of this will go to Ghana. It's one of the countries that we're working with, but as the initiative grows and as we make experience and we make the case to donors that this work works and it's actually an effective solution, an important part of dealing with loss and damage, we hope that we can mobilize more funding, and that of course that would mean we can also bring more funding to Ghana and to deliver more finance solutions for this. So we really believe it's an important part of the of addressing loss and damage, and we also believe it should be, or the learnings of this space should be part of how the fund for dealing with loss and damage is set up. So for us, next year is also a very exciting year where we hope to really bring this agenda forward as well. I think I'll stop here. Thank you.
Thanks, Josie. We'll be moving on to Sarah from the V20 to speak to us also about financing mechanisms.
Hi, everyone. I will take 2 minutes in the interest of time. So I will just share one slide. So I want to share about the V20 loss and damage funding program. This was set out in early 2021, and I know that the UNFCCC had then gavelled last year the loss and damage fund of. So the intention of this program is to illustrate what is loss and damage exactly when it comes down to the community level, because at the end of the day, climate finance is lacking at the community level and the subnational level. Access has been quite challenging, and we hope that the loss and damage funding the loss and damage fund of the UNFCCC can ensure that there is local access in addition to budget support and other needs relating to losses and damages. So the V20 loss and damage program has 4 elements. One is community infrastructure, so repairing buildings, water supply, medical facilities, public housing. And there's also the private assets, which includes repairs on homes, livelihood assets, livestock. And then a lot of the V20 members are also island states, atolls, and so this also includes a coral reef restoration element. So these are all losses and damages that communities are facing today. But what we found is that when it comes to implementation, it's actually important not to build back the same infrastructure, because climate change is increasing in intensity and frequency. And so with that, there is an adaptation component that's funded by the Global Environment Facility. So that way, if we're talking, like if communities, for example, lost a livelihood opportunity, then you would replace the livelihood opportunity, but give them diversification as well, so that they have a way to have a climate resilient livelihood option. And then with homes and private asset and community infrastructure, it's the same thing. You would perhaps build it a little higher than business as usual. So this is all part of the program, and the intention of this program is to get lessons learned as fast as possible. So there's implementation in Malawi, Bangladesh, and Kenya. And moving forward with resources from the government of Wallonia, they've committed so far an extra $3 million. We would then support the Global Shield elements in the Pacific and also in Ghana. So with that, I'll stop here as we have to move to the next session. Thank you.
Apologies for rushing you through the financial mechanisms. We have Mr. Ansong to wrap us up this session in 2 minutes, and then we'll move to the next section.
Okay, good morning, and thank you very much, Abna. I must say that with all the development that have gone on so far, the element of insurance address this issue about loss and damage. And if you relate it to the Akosombo Dam, you realize that you have the asset, which is the dam, and then the people who are affected are third parties, and their livelihoods and their properties are affected. And insurance have provisions to address some of these liabilities. If we call it as third-party liability, insurance addresses these, and it's something that I would say is a way forward as V20 Global Shield come into the space. I would just say that there's a provision in the Insurance Act which makes it such that you have to also look at the local content aspects where we talk about liability arising in the country and the property situated in the country. In the Insurance Act, we can also look at this as a way of collaboration to address this situation. So I would say the insurance is the way forward that can address all these, since it's a risk mitigation and risk assessment that we have to look at. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Anson, for wrapping this up really quickly for us. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of the loss and damage event, which focuses on Akosombo as an example. We've learned a lot. We're looking forward to the report that the EPA will be sharing with us on the gap analysis. I would like for us to acknowledge the incoming Secretary General of the Climate Vulnerable Forum, President Nasheed, who has joined us this morning. I would like to urge all of you, please stay with us, because next is Rewrite COP, which is on the theme, Rewriting Our Future with Arts and Science in Climate Policy Spaces. Thanks so much for being with us this morning.